Welcome to the 8th quarterly report detailing the progress made by NASA's Ares projects on America's next launch vehicle. Last quarter, the project reported on first stage nozzle manufacturing, a second main parachute drop test, and the beginning of J2X power pack testing. Work from last quarter continued on dome gore panel fabrication, process development for the solid rocket motor, and installation of tools at Marshall's friction stir welding facility. Wind tunnel testing this quarter obtained data on the vehicle configuration with full protuberances on the model. These protuberances provided engineers with a more accurate idea of how aerodynamic forces will affect the vehicle during flight. Work began this quarter on refurbishing Marshall's dynamic test stand, used for vibration testing on both the Saturn rockets and the Space Shuttle. Crews began refitting the facility, removing structures used for the Space Shuttle and clearing the way for Ares. The main testing bay doors were lowered for the first time in 2 decades. The Ares 1X first stage team is building the new forward structures that will connect the solid rocket motor to the upper stage. This work utilizes both conventional welding and state-of-the-art coordinate measuring to ensure that the parts are built in line with the original design. At ATK, engineers began upgrading the T97 test stand for use with the Ares 5 segment solid rocket motors. The refurbished stand will withstand the greater thrust of the Ares motors and will have additional instruments for measuring loads during testing. Back at Marshall, engineers calibrated the load cells for the T97 test stand to ensure the accuracy of the thrust measurements. These tests were intended to verify that the stand can take the load required for full-scale testing. The results were a success, with the load cells meeting all specified requirements for Ares testing. Engineers at ATK performed a dry fit of the mold that will be used to shape the forward segment of the motor's solid propellant. The 12 fins of the core will determine the final shape of the solid rocket fuel in the motor. Tooling and process changes have been made for this procedure to improve performance of the motor, as well as streamline the manufacturing process from previous shuttle experience. Manufacturing demonstrations continued this quarter for the gore panels of the upper stage liquid hydrogen tank dome. After being stretched and then cut to the right shape, thickness measurements are taken over the entire panel. Large discrepancies are ground away, and then the panel is dipped into a masking material. Lasers are used to create a topographical map of the panel, and the masking material is cut away from thicker areas. The panel is then dipped into a caustic solution that dissolves excess metal. More of the mask is cut away, and the process is repeated until the entire panel is of a uniform thickness. The final pieces were delivered this quarter for Marshall's world-class friction stir welding facility, with the arrival of a vertical weld tool and completion of the robotic weld tool assembly. These tools allow engineers to manufacture test hardware on-site, verifying procedures and materials before full-scale upper stage manufacturing begins at Michoud Assembly Facility in Louisiana. Test continued this quarter on the Heritage S4B vent relief valves. The valves are pressurized using gaseous nitrogen and subjected to various flow rates to see how they react. Knowledge gained from these tests will help designers working on valves for the Ares 1 main propulsion system. Future testing will include cryogenic fluids for more flight-like results. The J2X engine team continued work on power pack testing this quarter with a series of test burns of increasing length. These tests will validate the performance of Heritage hardware to help reduce early design risk on the J2X and keep the development schedule on track. Join us again this summer for a solid rocket motor firing, first stage propellant installation, and manufacturing of Ares 1X roll control hardware. If you would like more information about Ares plans and progress, please visit us on the web at nasa.gov/Ares.